Hello everyone. Today we are going to study about the different topics of international business environment. Let's move on in continuation to the last units that we have covered. So this is the second unit of this particular subject. Okay, so international business environment. What is international business? Like it comprises the political, economic, regulatory, tax, social and cultural, legal and technical environment we know. So an international business environment is surrounding in which international business companies run their businesses. Like international business environment is a multi-dimensional, including the political risk, cultural differences, exchange risks, legal and taxation issues. So the main cultural and social factors that affects international business are like language, education, religion, values, customs, and social responsibilities. So the political environment, what is that? So it refers to the government, relationships with the businesses, and the political risk in the country. For example, like doing business internationally implies dealing with different type of government relationships and level of risks. So there are many different types of political systems. For example, multi-party democracies, or it can be a one-party state. It can be a constitutional monarchies or dictatorships like military and non-military. So these are different types of government that we have to deal with, political environment that the international business has to deal with. So therefore, in analyzing the political legal environment, an organization may broadly consider the following aspects, right? What are these aspects? Like approaches to the government towards business, that is restrictive and facilitating approaches. Next is facilities and incentives offered by the government, right? Next is legal restrictions. For instance, licensing requirements, reservation to a specific sector like the public sector, private or small sectors like that. Next is the restriction on importing technical know-how, capital goods and raw material. So the restrictions on exporting products and services or procedural formalities required in setting the business. So this can be the political system of a business. The next one is economic environment. Now, what is that? It relates to all the factors that contribute to a country's attractiveness for foreign business. That means the economic environment, it can be very different from one nation to another. Countries are often divided into three main categories, like the more developed or industrialized, the less developed, or the third world, and the newly industrializing or emerging economies, right? So within each category, there are major variations, but overall, the more developed countries are the rich countries, the less developed, the poor ones, and the newly industrializing, these moving from poorer to richer. So these distinctions are generally made on the basis of the gross domestic product, that is per capita. Better education, infrastructure and technology, healthcare, and so are also often associated with the levels of economic development. The better these facilities are there, it is said that the economy is more developed, right? So the clarity, the level of economic activity combined with education, infrastructure, and so on, as well as the degree of government control of the economy, affect virtually all facets of doing business. And a firm needs to recognize this environment. And if it is to operate successfully internationally, it has to recognize. So while analyzing these economic environments, they have to recognize and understand all these aspects of the particular economic system of that economy in which they're planning their international business, right? So the organization intending to enter a particular business may consider the following aspects, like an economic system to enter the business sector, stage of economic growth and the pace of growth, level of national and per capita income, incidence of taxes, both direct and indirect, infrastructure facilities available and the difficulties thereof, availability of raw materials and components and the cost thereof, sources of financial resources and their cost, availability of manpower, managerial, technical, and workers available, and their salaries and wage structure. So these all things they have to consider. The next is technological environment. Now, the technological environment comprises what the factors related to material machines used in manufacturing goods and services. Now, receptivity of organizations to new technology and adoption of new technology by consumers influence decisions made in an organization. So, as firms do not have any control over the external environment, the success depends on how well they adapt to the external environment, of course. So an important aspect of the international business environment is the level and acceptance and of technological innovations in different countries. The last decade of the 20th century saw major advances in technology, and this is continuing in the 21st century. We all know that. So technology often is seen as giving firms a competitive advantage. Hence, firms compete for success to the newest in technology, and international firms transfer technology to be globally competitive. So it is easier than ever for small business plan to have a global presence, of course, thanks to the internet. So while greatly grows the exposure, their market, and their potential customer base. So for economic, political, and cultural reasons, right? Some countries are more accepting of technological innovations, others less accepting. It depends, right? So in analyzing the technological environment, the organization may consider what? Number one, level of technological development in the country as a whole and specific business sector, the pace of technological changes and technological obsolescence, sources of technology, and lastly, the restrictions in facilities for technology transfer and time taken for the absorption of technology. The next is cultural environment. So the cultural environment is what is one of the critical components of the international business environment and one of the most difficult to understand. Why? This is because the cultural environment is essentially unseen. It has been described as a shared, commonly held body of general beliefs and values that determine what is right for one group. Like a national culture is described as the body of general beliefs and the values that are shared by the nation. So beliefs and values are generally what it is seen in the formed by factors such as what history, language, our religion, the geographic location, the government, and the education and all what is given to us. So thus firms begin a cultural analysis by seeking to understand these factors, right? So there are four dimensions of cultural values, including individualism, uncertainty avoidance, power distance, and masculinity. So individualism is the degree to which a nation values and encourages individual action and decision making, right? And uncertainty is what is avoidance in the degree to which a nation is willing to accept and deal with uncertainty. So what is power distance? Power distance is the degree to which a national accepts and sanctions differences in power. Now, this model of cultural values has been used extensively because it provides data for a wide array of countries. So many academics and the managers found that this model helpful in exploring management approaches and that would be appropriate in different cultures. Like for example, in a nation that is high on individualism, one expects individual goals, individual tasks, and of course, individual reward system to be effective. Whereas the reverse would be in the case of a nation that is low on individualism, right? So while analyzing social and cultural factors, the following aspects should be considered. Let's find out them one by one. The very first one is approaches to society towards business in general and in specific areas. Influence of social, cultural, and religious factors on the acceptability of the project, the lifestyle of people and the products used for them, level of acceptance of or resistance to change, values attached to a particular product, that is the possessiveness value or the functional value of a product, right? And demand for the specific product for specific occasion, and lastly, the propensity to consume and to save, of course, right? The next one is that you have to consider is competitive environment. Now, what is that? Competitive environment also changes from country to country. We know that, right? So this is partly because of what the economic, political, and cultural environments existing in the country. So these environmental factors have to determine, these help determine the type and degree of competition that exists in the given country. So competition comes from variety of sources. It can be a public or a private sector, come from the large or small organizations, be domestic or global, and stem from traditional or new competitors, GST registrations, etc., etc. And so for a domestic firm, the most likely sources of competition might be well understood. The same isn't the case when a person moves to compete in a new environment, right? So these are the competitive environment to be considered. Okay, the next one is the international legal environment. So private international law governs relationship between persons and organizations engaged in international transactions and addresses which laws will apply when the parties are in a legal dispute. Foreign law is a law enacted by a foreign country. So if a company engages in any transaction overseas, for example, it will have to familiarize itself with the general concepts of public and private international laws as well as foreign laws, because all can affect the manner in which you can engage in business abroad. So like at the most essential aspect of the international legal system that are relevant to business. So that have to be taken care of, that have to be studied properly. So the business legal environment plays a very important role, right, in determining the success of any business around the globe. Like the government taxes that are being imposed among other regulatory measures help to promote economic growth and to protect consumers from exploitation and other legal factors, right? The next one is public international law, sources and relevance of business. The next topic that we're going to cover today is this. Now, public international law comes from three primary sources: the treaties, convention, protocols, charters of international organizations, and the executive agreements govern relationship between countries and international organizations. So, the treaty. Treaty is an agreement between one or more countries that addresses specific aspects of international relations between the parties of the treaty. A convention is also an agreement between countries and is often negotiated through international organizations such as UN and International Monetary Fund, IMF, or World Bank, or on a regional or global basis, such as the entire continent of Europe. Protocols, what are they? Are agreements that address matters that are less important than treaty matters, but may relate to matters related to treaties. So finally, executive agreements are simply agreements between the executives and of two or more governments. So customary international law is basically the customs that have been developed between states in addressing international relationships that have become general practice and accepted as law. So certain principles common to major legal systems such as due process, rules of evidence, and a trial of legal tribunal such as court of law also comprise a source of international law. So the businesses engaging in international transactions can be affected by public international laws in several different ways, right? Let's find out how. Trade agreements address some aspect of the trade relationship between two or more countries, including barriers of trade that will usually affect importers and exporters of goods and services. So a traditional barrier to trade is a tariff, which is a special tax on imported goods. So if your products or services is subject to a tariff, it will probably be more expensive than domestic goods and services. So the tariff can be assessed as a percentage of the value of the imported goods or as a flat assessment based on the number of units being imported. There are also non-tariff barriers, including quotas, which restrict the number of imports permitted to into a country, and embargoes that ban imports and exports with a foreign country or certain products. An example of embargoed country is Cuba, and an embargoed product is cocaine. To give an example. So finally, indirect trade barriers exist, such as local laws, regulations, and customs that may make it difficult to conduct business in a foreign country. Anti-bribery conventions are international agreements that prohibit bribery in the business. You should note that countries do impose domestic laws prohibiting bribery and other acts of corruption related to international trade. such as the United States of Foreign Corrupt Practice Act of 1977. Check that out. So environment treaties can also affect imports and export of products if foreign products do not meet established environmental requirements of treaties entered into by the relevant country. The protection of intellectual property rights is also important in international business. So you may not want to conduct business in foreign country if the national government will not protect your intellectual property right, such as copyrights, trademarks, and patents. So that is also important. The next topic to cover is defining ethics and social responsibility in international business. So, according to Webster Dictionary, ethics means what? The discipline dealing with what is good or bad and or right and wrong, or with moral duty and obligation. While social responsibility is moral, legal, or mental accountability. So, together, these two terms make up the foundational principles and character which drive the decision a company and individual present, right? So, ethics in international business framework. So while instituting an ethical framework, 8 basic steps are required to fulfill the intent, right? So what are those? You can see a diagram like ethical leadership, creating the ethical environment. It is evaluating the performance, building commitment, written guides of acting ethically, developing ethical skills, reinforcing ethical behavior and training, and reporting breaches. So written guidelines that detail how employees are to treat supplier, customer, competitors, other stakeholders. Okay, code of ethics should be written. Written statements of the values and ethical standards that guide the firm's actions, like must be backed by organizational practices and corporate culture. Must make decision whether to establish an overarching code for all its global unit or to trailer each one to its local context. So it must be clear and straightforward. Must address the major element relevant to its environment. Must be adhered to when problem arise. And ethical training, like MNCs offering employees training in how to cope with ethical dilemmas. For example, Boeing, like line managers leading training sessions for other employees, ethics committee must make decision whether to make ethics training globally consistent or tailored to local context. So most MNCs provide expatriates with localized ethics training to better prepare them for their foreign assignments. For example, BP prepared its managers from London for future assignment to Russia. Language training, training on local business customs, practices, and ethics, right? The next topic is ethics in cross-cultural and international context, right? So again, there are three parts of it. One, very first is behavior of organization towards employees, behavior of employees towards organization, and behavior of employees and organization towards other stakeholders, right? So how an organization treats its employees, of course. So hiring and firing. So based on the individual ability to perform the job versus giving preferential treatment to individual based on non-work related factors like gender, age, ethnicity, etc. So for example, wages and working conditions. A manager paying an employee less than he or she deserves. Challenges of managers in international organizations can be like a firm must deal with country-specific ethical issues regarding its treatment to of employees. So must be prepared to contend with international comparison. Like for example, the practice of outsourcing production to overseas locations, right? And how employees treat organization. Conflict of interest now occurs when a decision potentially benefit the individual to the possible detriment of the organization. For example, a gift from the supplier, right? Example, a New York Times refused to allow their employees to accept free meals for fear that their journalistic judgments and integrity might be compromised. Next can be secrecy and confidentiality. So divulging company secrets, employees who work for highly competitive business industries, like stronger temptation to sell information about company plans to competitors. Like for example, Durawool, an American steel wool manufacturer versus its Chinese subsidiary Motorola and SI Group legal struggles with their former Chinese managers. So this can be a problem. Honesty, for example, using a business telephone to make personal long distance calls, stealing supplies, or padding expense accounts. So these are all things that matters. So how employees and organizations treat other stakeholders. Now, who are the other stakeholders? Are customers, competitors, suppliers, dealers, and labor unions. So problems created by ethical ambiguity. For example, firms in global pharmaceutical industry facing criticism of expensive drugs, financial reporting, overstating their earning projections, and hiding financial problems can also be one of the examples. So actually, organizational practices and corporate culture contributing to establishing the ethical climate of a firm. If top leaders in a firm behave in an ethical manner and violations of ethical standards and promptly and appropriately addressed, the rest of the organization quickly understands the expectation for their own behavior. So this all goes together. The next topic is CSR in international business, corporate social responsibility. It's what? It's a set of obligations an organization undertakes to protect and enhance the society in which it functions. Like it is a balance between the ideal of a global stance on CSR versus local conditions that may compel differential approaches. For example, tobacco industry. So most developed countries, tobacco companies are limited in their ability to advertise and are required to post health warning on cigarette packages. So some countries are less restrictive on limitation or has no limitations. So it should decision should apply most restrictive approach versus take advantage of the flexibility offered in some markets. So it depends. Now, how do you manage your social responsibility? So there are approaches to social responsibility, managing compliance, and evaluating social responsibility, right? So let's understand them one by one. So first, approaches to social responsibility, that is obstructionist stance. What is that? Do as little as possible to address social or environmental problems. That is, to deny and avoid accepting responsibility for their actions in case of unacceptable practices. For example, Estra, a Swedish firm accused of diversion of company resources for personal use. So, top officials in Sweden denied any wrongdoing before the investigation. So, these types of firms are at least responsible ones. Defensive stance. The organization will do everything that is required of it legally, but nothing more. Insists that their job is to generate profits. For example, tobacco companies, right? What is accommodation stance? It meets its legal and ethical requirements and go beyond the requirements in selected cases. Voluntarily agree to participate in social programs, but solicitors have to convince the organization that the program are worthy of their support. The organization do not proactively seek. So what is proactive stance? In favor of social responsibility, view themselves as citizens of society. So proactively seeks opportunities to contribute. For example, Aquafinca, the first supplier of tilapia to meet the international standards for responsible tilapia aquaculture. So indicate a sincere and potent commitment to improving general social welfare in a country. So these types of firms are the most responsible firms, who takes proactive stance, right? Now, managing compliance. CSR is equal to business strategy. So MNC should view social responsibility as a major challenge that requires careful planning, decision making, consideration, and evaluation. Now, how do you manage it? The legal compliance. Legal compliance, it means the extent to which the organization conforms to regional, national, and international laws, archived by assigning the appropriate and functional managers. What is the meaning of ethical compliance? It is the extent to which the members of the organization follow basic ethical standards of behavior. Training in ethics, like developing guidelines, like code of conduct, and like establishing formal ethics committees, etc. The next one is philanthropic giving. The awarding of funds or gifts to charities or other social programs. Like, for example, Alco gave $112,000 to a small town in Brazil and build a sewage treatment plant. So these are different ways how you manage the compliance. Now, how we evaluate the social responsibility, right? It requires employees to read their guidelines or code of conduct, code of ethics, and sign a statement. Evaluate how it responds to instances of questionable legal and ethical conduct. So a corporate social responsibility, corporate social audit. One second. Yeah, a formal and thorough analysis of effectiveness of a firm's social performance undertaken by a high-level managers from within the firm requires clearly defined goals, analysis of resources, determination of how well it is achieving the goals, and make recommendations, right? So this is all about today's topic. I hope you understood. If any questions, you can put up in the chat.